Okay, testing, testing, testing. Is this thing on? Okay, we're doing this, yeah. Hey everyone, it's me, Gabby. I know it's been a long time since I've made a video, I've made a vlog for the Musician's Life series. I'm not really gonna give you any excuses as to why I haven't been committing to uploading vlogs every other week, weekly, kind of like how I was saying before, but to be honest, I haven't really been writing much anyways. I just haven't been writing music. I just haven't been spending time writing music as much as I thought I'd be. And that makes me really sad, but there have been things that I've been doing aside from that. I've been doing a lot of soul searching, and so part of this video was to talk about what I've been doing, how I'm coming back, and kind of the reasons why I've been struggling to be really creative. So what have I been doing? Well, the last time I left you all, I was about to embark on a 3-week cross-country road trip to Deer Isle, Maine. This was just something that I kind of wanted to do in 2020, though obviously with the pandemic, travel was a little bit more restricted. I didn't have the chance to get to focus on that quite so much as was the case for most people, but it was something that I really wanted to do. It was kind of a way for me to escape home and have some honest quality time with myself, which is something I didn't realize I wasn't really doing until I went on this trip. It kind of made me really hyper aware of that. And it's not that I don't get alone time in my day-to-day, but as someone who doesn't live by themselves, I live with my mom and 2 other roommates, people who rent rooms in this house. When you're not living by yourself and you value alone time, it feels like you always kind of have to be on alert for someone else's needs. And maybe that's just the way that I've been conditioned, with my own family dynamics, feeling like I always had to be on alert for a family member in case someone needed help. I had to be there for moral support or just actual doing something for them to support them. For all the time that I've lived with my family, I've never felt like I can just 100% relax all the time or not have to worry about the fact that maybe someone's gonna bother me or need me for help. And so going on this road trip really was helpful. And on top of that, it was really nice to get to see another side of the country that I've never seen before. And it just felt like a new adventure, like I was navigating something new. And on top of that, Deer Isle was such a beautiful place to be. I mean, there was a little town there and nearby towns, but it's mainly forest and nature, and obviously it's an island, so you have access to the shorelines and there's beautiful hikes everywhere. And so I really got to spend a lot of time feeling like I could spend a lot of time in nature and alone and with myself and just tending to myself, really. So that was really nice. And aside from the trip, I've had some not so positive life changes happen to me. Some of them have been COVID related. My dad got COVID. He was really sick for a long time. In fact, he's out of the woods for all of the bad things, but he's still kind of recovering from it. He's still fatigued from having had it very, very severely, to the point where we thought, we were all dreading the worst. So that hasn't been fun. And on top of that, there's a whole lot of family dynamics that are complicated, interwoven into all of that. And, even without the situation with my dad, it's been difficult to navigate family relationships, and being in a position where I'm still living with family, that just makes my environment feel really difficult to live in. So on top of that, I'm trying to navigate what friendships and relationships and things like that look like. When you're in your 20s, you feel like you have this idea of what it's supposed to look like, and you have faith that even as you navigate your 20s, you're going to figure out what that looks like. And then you get to your 30s and you realize not only was none of that stuff true, but, you know, it can still always change at any time. And I've had to deal with a lot of, you know, relational dynamic changes, both platonic and romantic. And that's, you know, that's never easy to deal with. And I'm also a type of person who kind of lives life existentially a little bit, in the sense that I'm kind of like, when something negative affects me, it, you know, it has a long lasting effect on my psyche in the day to day. So that's not always easy to grapple with either. So again, just shit upon shit, really. I mean, all of the shit I'm going through is just kind of like normal life stuff, things that normal people go through, barring COVID, I hope, though. I know throughout the course of this pandemic, a lot of people have been affected by COVID. I mean, I can't think of a single person who hasn't been affected by COVID in some way, regardless whether they themselves or someone they know has had it or not. You know, we've had to change the way we operate our daily lives as a result of this pandemic. And so, you know, what I'm going through is not so abnormal for anyone, honestly. And, you know, considering what I'm going through right now, or what I've been going through, you know, if I just took a step back and looked at it, then I could just say, oh, you know, you're just going through some hard times, and, you know, it won't last like this forever. It'll get better, right? But on top of all these problems that I had, you know, especially we're talking about this in the context of me progressing as a musician, I have just become so much more potently aware about how little our society cares about creative people and creative careers. If you're an artist, musician, creative entrepreneur, something of that sort, then you're gonna understand the context of what I'm about to say next. But for those of you who don't have a career in a creative field, I'd like for you to consider about how what I'm going to say next has maybe, you know, affected the way that you view creative careers in the scope of your own life. And perhaps this is also the moment you can be grateful that you will never have to worry about the societal dynamics of your life's calling. You know, again, going back to talking about like what it's like to feel conditioned to be in a certain situation, before I even knew that I wanted to be a musician, I had always gotten in my head that, you know, arts and music were not valuable careers in our society. You know, growing up, they tell you, oh, put your kids in music and arts class because it's going to help them learn how to express themselves better and be more creative. But, you know, only when you do that as a hobby, because as soon as you suggest that you're interested in going into a creative field as, you know, have that be part of your career, you know, your parents get nervous about how you're going to make money. And why is that? It's like, why can't we hope that, you know, if we are the best we can be and we become good enough to be considered a professional at what we do, we won't make any money at it? I mean, you could say that for a lot of callings, not necessarily just in the arts, but because this is a channel talking about my music journey, you know, this is something that is very potent in the arts and creative community. Our jobs are not seen as valuable. You know, I was listening to a podcast, This American Life. If you haven't heard it, I mean, it's just amazing storytelling on another level. And not too long ago from now, they released an episode that talked about jobs during the pandemic. You know, talk about an event that's really exposed what matters to people and how society views you and your profession as a whole. I feel like the pandemic just exposed all the things that, you know, maybe society sees a creative or quote unquote non-essential person as. You know, we're kind of just seen as so disposable. And that's not to say that, you know, we should be prioritizing music over feeding people. I'm not saying that, but, you know, before the pandemic even started, the value that we have as creative people has just pretty much been non-existent. Every time I tell people what I do, then sometimes I might get followed up with, oh, well, what do you actually do in your job? or what's your real job, you know, which is really invalidating because I spent so much time practicing to get good at my craft and be good at what I do. And sometimes, you know, I don't always blame people who say that, who like, oh, what's your real job? Or like, oh, what do you actually do? When I kind of start talking about the fact that I'm a professional musician, it's because our society is conditioned for us to believe that music and arts have no value. You know, it's for that reason why, you know, musicians are only going to get paid $100 at a wedding, just because you don't see it as that valuable. Like, as long as you pick up an instrument and take the time to learn the song, it's easy. Why should I have to pay you a lot? You know, people don't consider how much time and energy we put into learning our craft. You know, just like you put so much time and energy, you know, especially if you're not a musician watching this, or if you're not you don't consider yourself part of the creative field, if you don't have a creative career, you know, you spend a lot of time learning what you know and being good at like your job, you know, learning the skills that are needed to perform your job. The same goes with performing instrument. You know, we spend hours and hours of practicing, you know. I mean, this is kind of a little bit an abusive trope, but you know, it's a joke that we spend like 8 hours a day in our practice rooms just so we can get good enough to play our recital pieces, or for a performance of any kind, or to write a piece of music that's someone's gonna be interested in hearing, or that's the hope. I feel like people don't consider how much time and energy it takes to go into a creative craft, and it's really frustrating. And on top of that, it's like, you know, I've finally gotten to a place where I know my worth as a musician, but it's really fucking frustrating to have to try and explain that to other people and to validate that to other people. Because on one sense, it's like, I don't need you to fucking validate my career. I know I'm good enough. And fuck you if you don't think so, if you don't value me. But at the same time, as a freelance musician, I'm relying most of the time on other people to deem that I'm good enough to perform my job, or I am worthy of receiving the money that you're about to give me so I can make my living. I also don't, you know, especially when you have to like negotiate pay, or people are only willing to offer a certain amount of pay for a job, it's like, it kind of makes me feel like they only think we do this as a hobby, because, you know, especially in a city like LA, it is not cheap to fucking live here. You know, average rent is like over $1,000 a month. Honestly, I would say even more, maybe like more like $1,200 to $1,500 if you want to just like live on your own. You know, that's just rent. That doesn't include like maybe a car payment, your utilities, you know, maintaining your instrument, like all the expenses. You know, I have a friend named Sky who works in the film industry, and I remember her saying to me one day, and I couldn't help but laugh when she said this because it was so true. Like, it's like so ironic that the creative arts music fields have some of the most biggest expenses in our field, yet we're paid like next to nothing because, again, people don't see our work as valuable. It's the same exact reason why, you know, the arts programs, the music programs are the first to get cut in schools. I remember when I was going to high school, I don't know where I saw this, but it was like the budget of how our high school was spending money towards, you know, extracurricular activities. Our band, our music program, got $50. $50 fucking dollars. I don't remember if it was for the whole semester or a year, but that just seems so ridiculous to me that people, you know, the arts are valued so little that we're only worth $50. And granted, my high school is a big sports high school. You know, we had a really good football team, at least when I was going there. We've had people from our high school go on to have successful careers in the NFL. And, you know, so they prioritize sports a little bit more. But fuck, it's just, you know, I could go on and on about this, but at the end of the day, it just feels like nobody cares. And again, like I said, the pandemic was the first thing to expose this. You know, what were musicians supposed to do when their whole livelihoods were cut out because we couldn't hang out with people in public? You know, the government just shrugs their shoulders and is like, good luck, figure it out, we don't care. It's just, I'm so fucking over it. I'm so fucking done with my craft being seen as lesser than just because I'm not a doctor or I'm not an engineer. We're not all meant to be doctors and engineers or math and science people. We all have, gifts that we can contribute to society. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like we would be much better off as a society if we could all work in jobs in fields that we were both skilled at and with things that we actually love to do, because I think it would make it working easier. We would feel like we're contributing to society in a more meaningful way because we're actually doing something that we love to do and it helps people, and it gives, I think there's value in any career that we could give. I just think the big problem is that society doesn't only views, I think the big problem is that we live in a society that only values like certain careers, and if it's not seen as money making worthy, or and I think part of us defining that again is just why do we think that arts and music are less creative? Millions and millions of dollars are spent in the entertainment industry, so it's not that we don't think it's valuable, but then why is it so hard for so many people to do it? Why is it so much harder than being a doctor or a lawyer? Why have we made it this way? I mean, I obviously know in the context of our society now why it's harder to be a creative person, but I'm trying to dig deeper here with this one. Like, why is it so much harder? So yeah, keeping all of that in mind, what I just said about my little societal rant and all the stuff before that, it probably doesn't surprise you why I haven't been writing music as regularly as I hoped I would when I restarted this vlog again. But fortunately, in the past month or so, I've kind of gotten some more creative spurts. I've been getting a lot more personal support for myself in my relationships and just like joining communities that feel really supportive to me as an artist and as a person. So yeah, I'm gonna be uploading more vlogs. My plan is to do every other week, and I'm really excited to share with you the kind of sparks that have been going off, because with everything that I've kind of pieced together in my head right now, I'm hoping to get this single out before the end of the year. We're in September, so we only have like 3 or 4 months left in the year, but I have faith that I'm gonna pull this out before then, and you're all gonna get to enjoy that as you watch these vlogs. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to everyone who's subscribed to my channel. I know I don't have a huge following right now, but I'm always so grateful to the people who show me support, especially the ones that have been there from day one. So I'm really grateful to you for standing by me. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one in 2 weeks by the time you're watching this, I hope. So yeah, I'll see you around. Bye everyone.
Press go to begin.